so in this unit we've been talking about how to multiply different types of fractions. Sometimes we're going to have two fractions, sometimes we'll have a whole number times a fraction, and other times we'll have two mixed numbers multiplied times each other. In this situation, the length of the United States flag must be 1 9/10 times the width. A flag company plans a large flag with a width of 8.5 feet. What must the length be? So the first thing we need to do is write out 8.5. Because that is what we know. We're going to multiply that times itself 1 9/10. Okay? Step 1 is to turn the mixed number into an improper fraction. So 8 times 2 is going to give you 16, and then add your 1 is going to give you 17. Halves. Times 1 times 10 is going to give you 10. Add your 9 is going to give you 19. Over 10. Alright? 17 and 10 have no common factor, neither does 2 and 19, so we have to multiply straight across. 17 times 19. Well, 9 times 7 is 63. Carry 1. 9 times 1 is 9. Plus your 6 is going to be 15. And then you're going to do 1 times 7, which is going to give you 7. And then 1 times 1 times 1 is going to give you 1. Add your numbers together. 7 and 5 is going to give you 12. And then 3 is going to be 323. And then 2 times 10 is really easy. That's just going to be 20. So you have 323 over 20. Okay? This number can be simplified and turned back into into a mixed number. So 20 can go into 323 16 times. Okay? And that'll give you 3 20ths left over. Alright? So this is your first example for this part. Let's move on to the next slide. Alright, so analyze the expression 2.5 times b. Decimal, or decide whether the product is greater than 2.5 or less than 2.5 for each given value. So if b was 2.5, you're going to replace 2 1/2 with your variable. For the orange sticky note, you're going to use this fraction, mixed number, which is 2 1/2. Is times b is going to be greater than, and you're going to have the same mixed number over here, but this one is saying it's going to be less than 2.5. Alright, so the first number is going to be, we'll just do this one first. 2 1/2 times 2 1/2. Again, you want to multiply your whole number times your denominator. 2 times 2 is going to give you 4. And then add your 1, which is going to be 5 halves. Multiply that times itself because this is the exact same thing as this. 5 halves. 5 and 2 do not share a common factor, so you're just going to multiply straight across. 5 times 5 is 25. 2 times 2 is going to give you 4. We are not done. This can be turned into a mixed number yet again. So 4 will go into 25 6 times. That will give you 24 with 1/4 left over. Now, is 6 1/4 greater than or less than 2.5? It is greater than. Let's move on to the next one. What if b equaled a whole number like 2? So you would have 2.5 times 2. Well, we know that when you're going to multiply a whole number times a fraction, you have to turn that whole number into a fraction. So now you have 2 1/2 times 2 over 1. That still means 2, but you just turned it into a fraction. Okay, with a mixed number, you have to multiply your whole number times your denominator, which will give you 4, and then you add 1, which is 5. We did this earlier. 5 5 halves times 2 over 1. Now, I like to use the method one that we talked about last week. That is to simplify before you multiply. You can find that 2 will go to itself 1 time. So 5 times 1 is 5, and 1 times 1 is 1. This is the same thing as 5. Okay? Is 5 less than or greater than 2 1/2? Well, I hope you know the answer to that. And the answer is it is greater than 2 1/2. Alright, so the first two are done. Let's work on this one right here. What if b equaled 1 1/2? Well, so we have the 2 1/2, which gets turned into 5 halves. We've done that 2 times already. Times 1 1/2. Again, when you are multiplying, or when you have a mixed number, you're going to multiply 1 times 2, which is 2, and then add your 1 to the top. It's going to be 3 halves. So we have 5 halves times 3 halves. 5 times 3 will give you 15. 2 times 2 is 4. I want you to pause the video and see what this can be reduced to before I give you the answer. Okay, so I hope you try to figure it out on your own, but if not, here's how it works. You're going to look at your denominator and figure out how many times will this denominator go into the numerator. Well, 4 does not go perfectly into 15, but it does go into 12 3 times. 3 is the whole number that you're going to use. 3 times 4 will give you 12, and then 3 more will be 15, so that 3 more is going to go on top, and the 4th is going to stay on the bottom. Is 3 3/4 bigger or smaller than 2 1/2? Yes. Okay. Whoops. 1, 2, and 3. Now I want you to do this one on your own and see if you can figure out what the value would be. Okay, so we did 1/10 times 5 halves. That should have given you 1/4. Is 1/4 going to be greater than or smaller than 2 1/2? Well, I hope you guys know that it's going to be a little bit smaller than 2 1/2. If you had 1/4 of a pizza, you've eaten much less than 2 1/2 pizzas. Okay? The 4th one is done. Let's do the 5th one together, and the 6th one you're going to do by yourself. 5th one says 9/10 times, again, 5 halves. Well, 10 and 5 can go into each other. 5 goes into itself 1 time. Oops. And 5 goes into 10 2 times. 9 times 1 will give you 9. 2 times 2 will give you 4. Now, 4 does not go into 9 evenly, but it can go into 8. And that's 2 times. 4 times 2 is 8, with 1 left over. 2 1/4. And that is also smaller than 2 1/2. Okay? Alright, do the last one on your own. Excuse the bell. Do the last one on your own, and I want you to show either of your teachers or your assistant teachers what the correct answer is. Alright, I hope you showed your answer to your teachers so you get credit for it. Moving on, work it out. A recipe for rice says to use 1 1/2 cups of water for each cup of rice. If a chef were to use 3 5/6 a cup of rice, how much water should she use? So the first thing you need to do is go ahead and write your problem out. You know it's going to be 1 1/2 times 3 5/6. Well, again, our first step is to turn the mixed numbers into an improper fraction. 1 times 2, that is going to give us 2, and then you add your 1, which gives you 3. 3 halves times 3 times 6, which will give you 18, and then you add your 5, gives you 23. 6. again, looking at your problem, you can already see that 3 and 6 have a common factor, and that would be 3. 3 can go into itself 1 time, and 3 can go into 6 2 times. 2 and 23 don't really have anything in common, so we can go ahead and multiply straight across. 1 times 23 will give you 23, and then 2 times 2 will give you 4. We are not done. 4 will go into 23. It will not go into it evenly, but it will go into 20 evenly, and that will be 5 times. 4 times 5 is 20. Then you have 3 left over, and your denominator stays the same. Okay? Let's clear this all. Alright, in written music, adding a small dot after a note increases the length of that note by half of its beat. In a certain musical composition, the note shown below counts 1/4 beat without the dot. Which equation shows how much the dot increases the length of this note? To figure out which one is the correct answer, write out your work, and then play the video again to figure out which one, if you were right. Alright, when you're looking at this problem, you see some keywords in there that let you know what you're looking for. You know that the beat is 1/4 without the dot. Alright? More important information is, in the question is asking which equation shows how much the dot increases, not how long it holds itself at the end. How much does it increase after you multiply? Well, we know that 1/4 the beat was without the dot. And we know that when you add a small dot, it increases it times 1/2. Okay? Well, if you're going to multiply 1/4 times 1/2, you will get 1/8. So the correct answer is C. So what I want you to do is get on your chapter 5-5 homework assignment and work that out. If you have a question, feel free to ask a neighbor or ask a teacher.